Dre and Smiley, trending Tuesdays. Dre, did you see the writer strike in Hollywood?
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Man,
that's real.
let me tell you what I think. I'm behind the writers, and it's the writers. First, let me say I am thoroughly impressed with the content that on all platforms, Amazon, Hulu, Netflix. I mean, these writers are on a different level. Back in the day, you might have one network, CBS, that had some good content, or NBC would have good content. Everyone has great, fascinating, inspiring stories and new ideas, new concepts. And I stand behind
Hmm.
the writers because they're not getting paid. I don't know why they won't pay them for their content. They created it, they owned it, and these companies, they must pay. So I hope they strike until they get what they need. What do you think about that, Drake?
So, simply put, I 110% agree with you and the writers, right? So, they need to be compensated appropriately for the work they're doing. One challenge, though, that comes along with um, society as we grow and evolve is how do we make sure that, you know, that compensation represents is represented appropriately. Here's what I mean by that. So, let's take technology for example. It's evolved, you know, enormously since we were kids. There's things that have been invented and have been forgotten about and aren't even being used anymore just since we've been alive, right? So, as it applies to the writers, so you have those that have been writing shows. I was reading an article where one guy was saying that when he got started writing back in the 80s or so, that he had the opportunity to, to learn about writing from top to bottom. He did it all. He even had the opportunity to do some producing. He said, but as time went on, things evolved where the writer's job was just simply to write, and very specific portions of the show. Either you're writing a couple characters or you're writing the jokes. You don't have full access to all that it encompasses, and so you see there how that role is kind of dwindling and the values becoming less and less appreciated. And now here we are where we've gone from, I think you touched on this, when we were kids, we had, you know, 5 TV stations with 3 shows each. I'm exaggerating to make a point. But nowadays, you have, a plethora of shows offered to you. And the writers, I don't know that their value is appreciated like it once was. As a result, these companies are saying, hey, they're not, the writer is not at the forefront of their mind when they're thinking about, compensation. And so I think the writers need to start looking at, hey, with all this AI stuff coming out, how things are evolving and changing, what do I need to do to make sure my value is high, I'm compensated appropriately, etc. Those are my initial thoughts, and I have more. But give me your feedback on that.
You ever go to a family reunion and they were like, well, who made the mac and cheese? And I only
Okay.
want so and so's
Okay.
mac and cheese because you could taste the mac and cheese and you're like, something's missing. There's some ingredient. Maybe it's the paprika or the salt or whatever. Something's missing from this
Right.
one versus the other one. Well, the writers
Yeah.
are that key ingredient. If it's that one joke
Sure.
that gets the show to go to the next rating level, I look at they're all pieces of the pie. So if you got 10
Sure.
parts and you take out, even if it's a 2-line character, you take that out, it's going to take away from the whole value of the thing. I said, what's the most
Right.
important piece of a car? Well, if you don't have the wheels, you can't go. You don't have the steering wheel, you can't steer. I mean, every piece is there because it's important. So the writers
Sure.
are important. And I think if they compensated the writers by saying, okay, we're not going to pay you this, but you're going to get equity in the company. The owners, they don't write a word or a sentence. They don't do final draft
Mm.
for a movie maker to write anything. So They should
Yeah.
compensate them for the work they've done. They're making zillions.
Right.
Why can't they share it with the
Yeah.
people who wrote it? It was their idea. So,
Just to put a fine point on it. So, if someone has written a show, so this same article I was reading, I forget the name of the show, but this guy wrote he was a writer on a show back in the 80s or 90s, and he still receives residual checks from the show whenever it airs as a writer. So again, if you wrote a show and it's streaming, it's on TV, etc., should you be compensated? Yes, and not only that, compensated appropriately. At the same time, I think writers need to take a step back and consider, things again are evolving, they're changing, with all the streaming, etc. What's my next best step to ensure that I'm not considering will I be compensated appropriately later? Quick story for you. In corporate America, with education and training, like decades ago, if you were a corporate trainer, you had to go out and do the training yourself. You had to be in the room. It was all live, but there was writing on the wall that suggested that soon trainers will not be as valuable because a lot of it will be virtual, right? And so, you know, trainers that were savvy and they started realizing, ooh, I need to start learning how to create training. I need to start learning how to be a part of this virtual training solution that's coming down the pike, right? And so their value, never decreased. They just kind of made a pivot. So by the same token, writers again should be compensated for the work they're doing, but they should also see the writing on the wall. With everything going to streaming, etc., AI. Our writers. You and I have both used AI. We could write the best joke in the world if we wanted to, just going to Chat GBT or some other. So our writers, is the value for them? This is just a question, rhetorical. Everyone out there can reflect on this. Are writers of these shows going to be as valuable tomorrow as they were yesterday? We don't know. I mean, that's something to think about. At the very least, have a great Tuesday, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.